Imagine the horror of being trapped underwater, running out of air, and stumbling upon the body of a friend who didn't make it. That's the unimaginable nightmare 5 friends faced in 2005. Their adventure turned deadly when they became stuck in a tiny underwater cave with no escape. This is the heart-wrenching story of the Gollum Cave tragedy. Gollum Cave, often ominously called the Cave of Death, is nestled in Y Mountain and is one of many caves scattered throughout Utah. This cave, with its small shadowy entrance set into the mountainside, is one that hikers might stumble upon by chance. Until 2 cavers decided to explore and map it, the cave remained unknown even to locals. This changed in 2005 when a group of young friends, captivated by the very same map, decided to venture into the cave. The group consisted of 5 friends: Jennifer Galbraith, Ariel Singer, Blake Donner, Scott McDonald, and Joseph Ferguson, all of whom shared a love for adventure and exploring new places. For many, the idea of venturing out before sunrise to explore a dark cave might seem like a nightmare, but for these friends, it was an exciting challenge. They saw the opportunity to explore Gollum Cave as a chance to test their limits and experience one of the most dangerous caves in the area. And since they already had a map of the cave's layout, they felt confident about what lay ahead. After all, what could possibly go wrong? One of the 5 friends had explored the cave before and survived, encouraged her friends to venture into the cave with her, assuring them that they would be able to hold their breath and make it to the other side without a problem. She was confident despite the fact that she had sustained hypothermia and passed out the first time she had tested her luck in the Cave of Death. The friends met up on August 17th at a local diner to plan their adventure. Gollum Cave is primarily composed of 2 chambers, the entry chamber and a hidden chamber connected by an underwater tunnel. The entrance to the cave is barely 4 feet high. From there, they needed to dive into the water and swim for about 30 seconds to reach the secret second chamber. However, their plan had 2 significant risks. The first was the cave's size. The entry to the underwater tunnel leading to the second chamber was only 18 by 24 inches, barely large enough for 1 person to pass through at a time. The tunnel itself was also just wide enough for a single person, so they would have to go through one by one, taking several minutes for everyone to make it to the second chamber and just as long to return. The second issue was the frigid temperature of the water. These 2 hazards are why Gollum Cave had earned its grim nickname, but the group was undeterred. Jennifer was sure her second attempt would be better. After dinner, they decided there was no better time than now to explore the cave. They went home for a few hours of sleep and then regrouped at the cave's entrance at 3 a.m. In front of the cave stood the 5 friends: Jennifer, Ariel, Blake, Scott, and Joseph, equipped with candles, a flashlight, some rope, and nothing else. Staring into the dark entrance, they hesitated for a moment. At this point, Joseph Ferguson decided to stay behind and wait for their return. After a brief discussion, they decided Jennifer should go first, given her previous experience with the cave. She swam through the underwater tunnel into the second chamber, followed shortly by the other 3. However, they had already made a critical mistake. None of the 4 people inside the cave were experienced cavers. They had some basic preparation. They tied a rope from the tunnel entrance to the second chamber and brought a few light sources like candles and a flashlight. But it wasn't enough. In the weeks following the tragic event, police managed to piece together what happened using the available evidence. The first major problem they encountered was the air quality. Many caves have poor air circulation, creating pockets with little to no oxygen. Unfortunately, the second chamber was one such area, with not enough oxygen to sustain 1 person, let alone 4. Within minutes of entering the chamber, the group began feeling lightheaded and unwell. It didn't help that they had held their breath for 30 to 40 seconds while swimming through the water tunnel, meaning they were all out of breath upon reaching the second chamber, where there wasn't enough oxygen to recover. To create some light, they lit a few candles, but this only worsened the situation by using up more of the already limited oxygen. Jennifer was chosen to be the first to exit, while the exact reason remains unclear. It's likely that Jennifer, like her previous attempt, was suffering from hypothermia and oxygen deprivation and was the most affected. The group decided she should leave first. Jennifer steeled herself, took a deep breath, and plunged into the water again, gripping the rope with one hand as she pushed through the icy, murky water towards the exit. But before she could reach safety, everything went black and she lost consciousness. Back in the second chamber, the remaining 3 friends continued to struggle with the effects of oxygen deprivation. They decided to leave one by one, taking 30 to 60-second breaks between exits to avoid bumping into each other in the narrow tunnel. Nearly a minute after Jennifer disappeared into the tunnel, Ariel Singer dove in, expecting a straightforward swim to the exit. But in the pitch-dark, murky water, she collided with Jennifer's floating body. Words can't capture the horror of bumping into a friend's lifeless body while you are already fighting for air. Jennifer's body completely blocked the path back to the first chamber, and in the dark water, with only a few seconds of air left, Ariel found it impossible to move Jennifer's body or get past. Those final moments of Ariel Singer's young life, struggling and thrashing in the icy blackness as her air ran out, are chilling to imagine. After just 60 seconds, her lifeless body slumped against the rock behind her. Blake and Scott, still in the chamber, were becoming increasingly desperate. The air quality was worsening, and they had to gasp for every breath. Even if the way to the exit had been clear, they lacked the strength to make it through. And even if, by some miracle, they had enough oxygen to swim through the water tunnel, they would only find the bodies of their friends blocking the way. There was simply no way out. One by one, the 2 men waded into the water tunnel that would become their final resting place. All 4 friends were in their prime. Ariel Singer, the youngest, had just turned 18, while Scott McDonald, the oldest, was 28. Together, they had many years of life ahead of them, but all their dreams, hopes, and desires were extinguished in an instant. The group had entered the cave around 4:30 a.m. After 45 minutes, Joseph became worried and started calling others who had been to the cave before, asking them to come to check on the group. At about 6:25 a.m., nearly 2 hours after his friends entered the cave, he called the police. But there was no movement, no flashlights, nothing to indicate any life inside the cave. Rescuers launched a massive effort, spending the next 4 hours pumping water out of the cave in hopes of saving someone. By early morning, they had lowered the water level by about 2 feet and were working as quickly as possible to find anyone alive. But sadly, when they finally searched the cave, they found that all their efforts were in vain. The 4 friends had drowned hours earlier. Soon after, Gollum Cave was sealed with cement, never to be opened again. In our next video, we'll dive into one of the most terrifying moments in caving history, an event from 2009 that still haunts many. Subscribe to our channel to find out how the rescue mission tragically failed, even after an intense 24-hour effort. Don't miss this gripping story.